Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be talking about a FODMAP load formula, which is a formula that I created that allows you to better track your FODMAP intake throughout the day. Okay, you might already know, but in case you don't, FODMAPs are particular kinds of carbohydrates in food that aren't easily digestible, and because they're not easily digestible, bacteria and fungus in your small intestine can ferment them directly, which causes primary gastrointestinal symptoms such as bloating, burping, gas, abdominal distension, etc., as well as secondary symptoms, maybe not as obvious, such as joint pain or mood disorders even. Okay, it's important to remember that only certain individuals are sensitive to FODMAPs. Okay, and generally, if you have a certain level of gut dysbiosis, microbiome dysbiosis, you'll be sensitive to them. But they do also confer health benefits, okay, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, according to Monash University, which is the world's leading research facility when it comes to FODMAPs, there are 6 primary classifications of FODMAPs. There's fructose, lactose, mannitol, sorbitol, galacto-oligosaccharides, and fructans, or fructo-oligosaccharides. Okay, so it's a little bit of a mouthful. What Monash does is it will rate the relative quantity of FODMAPs from these 6 different categories for every food that they test in their labs. The idea is that if you're sensitive to certain categories of FODMAPs, you should avoid these foods that are high in a particular category, at least in the short term. So Monash, as you can see here on the screen, this is a screenshot of their app. Monash University developed this app, which you can download, and it lists all the relative FODMAP concentrations in thousands of different foods that they've tested. This is a great app for quick reference. It's going to tell you whether or not a food is likely to trigger gastrointestinal symptoms if you eat it. Again, if you're sensitive to that particular category of FODMAP. Now, this app is great for individual foods, but it does have some limitations. So the first limitation, let me just go ahead and go to this slide right here. The first limitation is that it only gives you a relative rating for the quantity of FODMAPs in the food. Okay, so as you can see, they use a traffic light system to denote how the quantity of the FODMAPs at a certain tested serving size, right? So they say, red means high, yellow means there's a medium amount of FODMAPs in it, green is a low amount of FODMAPs. Or green can also mean below detectable limits, right? But the point is, they don't give you an absolute quantity of FODMAPs in the food, okay? So the second limitation is that the app doesn't take into account how many grams of food that you're particularly eating, right, in your serving sizes. So even though they might have tested 90 grams worth of asparagus, maybe you're planning to eat 180 grams of asparagus, right? So that makes it difficult to determine how many FODMAPs are in the serving sizes that you eat, right? The third limitation is that the app doesn't allow you to combine ingredients to obtain a total FODMAP value for the entire meal, okay? Which is very important. So let's say you had, let's say you have like 1/4 of an apple, right? 1/4 of a pear, 1/4 of a peach, and 1/4 of a plum, right? Okay, it'd be a really weird meal, but I guess you could do it. So according to the app, you're going to be well below the threshold FODMAP value for all of these foods, right? But when you combine them together in a meal, these foods are very much likely going to trigger GI symptoms for you when you combine them, right? Even though individually they wouldn't, right? And then the fourth limitation of the app is it doesn't allow you to track how many total FODMAPs you've eaten across all of your meals across the whole day. It doesn't give you what we're looking for is one single number that you can look up at the end of the day, right before you go to bed. It tells you how many FODMAPs you've eaten through the whole day, right, so that you can track things, right? They don't do that. They don't take into account, for instance, like the avocado that you had at breakfast, the Brussels sprouts that you had at lunch, and the garlic that you had at dinner. They don't combine those, right? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that one single number, the FODMAP load number. And that's what we want. So to solve all of these limitations, I wanted to create for myself a formula in my own personal health spreadsheet that would give me a single FODMAP load value for the total amount of FODMAPs I ate throughout the day, right? FODMAP load formula. That way, I can track my GI symptoms as well as my total FODMAP consumption, and then see if there's any statistical correlations between them, right? Am I statistically more sensitive to galacto-oligosaccharides, or am I statistically more sensitive to maybe fructans or fructose or lactose? I'll never know that necessarily unless I make some mathematical correlations, right? So in order to construct the formula, what I decided to do is we first have to transform the green, the yellow, the red traffic light system into quantifiable numbers, okay? So to do that, what we have to do is we have to assign the red light traffic indicators an arbitrary value of 1, right? The value isn't important as long as we stay consistent with it, right? So red is 1, yellow light indicators would become 0.66 or 66%, right? And then green light indicators, I usually assign a value of 0 to those, although it probably would be in some cases more accurate to say 0.33. It just depends on, inside of the app, you can see whether there's 0 FODMAPs in the food or whether there's a little bit of FODMAPs in the food. So we use 0.33 for that. So for each food, I add the relative FODMAP values in each category together. So if a peach has a red light indicator for mannitol and a red light indicator for sorbitol, with the other categories being green, I would just assign a 1 to each red category and then add them together. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. Or if an apricot has a red light for sorbitol and a yellow light for fructan and a green light for the other categories, I just add 1 plus 0.66 to get 1.66. So you're just combining those arbitrary numbers. Okay, so after adding the numbers together, you just divide by the serving size in grams. That's very important. The serving size in grams, it has to be grams, that the Monash University tested for that food. Okay, so they indicate in the app how many grams of each food they tested. So it's just a simple division problem, right? For instance, if an apricot obtained a red light for sorbitol and a yellow light for fructans, and Monash tested 70 grams of the food, you just divide 1.66 by 70. And what you're left with is the relative FODMAPness. That's the best way to say it. It's the FODMAPness per gram of the food in each category. So I call this the FODMAP fraction. Okay? But yeah, it is the FODMAP fraction. Okay, so this number isn't going to be perfect, but it does give you a ballpark quantifiable measurement how many FODMAPs are in 1 gram of the food. That's very important. We have to get down to the gram, okay? Because the next step is you're going to take that, the FODMAPness per gram of the food, and multiply it by the amount of grams of that food that you ate in the entire day, right? So if I divide 1.66 by 70 to get the total FODMAP value per gram of apricots, which would be 0.0237, right? And I multiply that by the number of total grams of apricots that I ate in the day, that would give me my number, right? So, okay, so for example, let's say we ate 100 grams of apricots. We would just multiply that by 0.0237, and that would give me a FODMAP load for apricots that would be 2.37. So that would be my FODMAP load for apricots, right? So this gives us a relative approximation of the total amount of FODMAPs from apricots that we ate through the day. Okay? So the ultimate goal, right, is we're trying to calculate this number for every food that we eat during the day. Okay, and then we just add them all up, right? It just becomes a simple addition problem. So let's say you get a FODMAP load of 2.37 from apricots, 4.82 from hazelnuts, right, that you ate during the day. All you have to do is you just add 2.37 to 4.82 to get a total FODMAP load. The total FODMAP load of 7.19. That's your master FODMAP load number, right? That's what we're after. That's the ultimate goal. Okay? And if you want to, you can even use this process to determine a subdivided FODMAP load value for each category of FODMAPs, including like sorbitol, mannitol, fructans, etc. Okay, so for me, what I do is I use a spreadsheet, my personal health data spreadsheet, and all of these categories are calculated for me. So let me go ahead and show you guys that real quick here. So you can see over here, this is my personal spreadsheet, right? So basically what I do, I track all of the ingredients that I eat throughout the day, right? You can see that on the top row, right? We've got beets, beef, blackberries, Brussels sprouts. Okay, I have tons, right? Chili, chicken, all alphabetically ordered. So I've got all these up in the top, right? So let's just take an example here. Let's go to cashews, right? Cashews have a lot of FODMAPs in them. This whole column right here is only for cashews, right? So if we scroll down, right, let's go to the FODMAP section, which is these 6 cells right here, right? 6 should remind you of the 6 categories, right? Over here, fructose, relative fructose, lactose, mannitol, sorbitol, galacto-oligosaccharides, fructooligosaccharides. All of these rows right here, this is the FODMAP data for all of the foods, right, are in these rows, right? If I triangulate to the cashews, right, we're left with these 4 cells. Okay, let's go through these one by one, right? We've got, fructose. There's no fructose in cashews, right? There's no lactose or milk in cashews, right? You can't milk a cashew. Well, I mean, you can make cashew milk, but that's different. They don't have udders. Let's put it that way. Okay, and then you've got mannitol, right? Or no, you don't have mannitol actually in cashews. You don't have sorbitol. You do have a very high amount of galacto-oligosaccharides. Look at that. That's one that in 15 grams, there's a red traffic light triggered, right? For 15 grams, that's so small, right? I mean, that is very high galacto-oligosaccharides, right? I have conditional formatting, which flags that as red. It also, double whammy, right? It's got, we take points, it has a yellow traffic light signal, right? So what I did is I just took 0.66 divided by 15 grams that were tested, right, to get that number, and it came up with 0.044, right? So there's about 0.07 GOS per gram of cashew, and there's about 0.04 FOS per gram of cashew. And then what I do, what my spreadsheet does for me is, up here, this is our FODMAP fraction that I was talking about earlier, right? It's 0.11. It's basically just a sum of all of the different categories, like you can see up here, right? It's just taking those 6 cells and it's adding them together to get 0.11. That's my FODMAP fraction for this food, in particular cashews. I have one for cauliflower, cheddar cheese, goat cheese, chicken, right? So a lot of these don't have any FODMAPs, right? Dark chocolate has a lot of FODMAPs. So does cocoa powder, right? So you can get the idea. So does, I don't know, pistachios. Dang, those got a lot. Those have a lot of FODMAPs, right? So I do this for every food. And then what happens is, we go back to cashews, right? Now that I have this number, all I do is I just multiply this number, right? Or the spreadsheet multiplies this number for me by, if I ate any amount of grams of cashew. It looks like I haven't eaten any grams of cashews in a while. But if I did, you can see like over here, right under carrots, under the carrot column, I had 47 grams of carrots. This is the only thing that I put in. I put in how many grams of the food I ate. Everything else is calculated for me, right? So for carrots, I had 47 grams on the 15th of March, right? So March 15th, 2021, I had 47 grams of carrots, right? So I input that, but let's say I had 47 grams of cashews, right? It would take this cell and it would multiply it by this cell, which is the FODMAP fraction, to give me a total FODMAP load, which you can see on this page, right? If we go to this page right here, I think it was, like for instance, let's just pick a different day. Since I didn't have cashews, that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But if I go to, March 29th, 2021, it took into account all of the FODMAPs that I had throughout the entire day of every food, and it gave me this one number, 21, right? This is the code up here in case you're interested for how to determine that. It's a sum product of those two cells, right? But it's just basically multiplying those two. So this column right here is the cream of the crop, right? This is the one number that we want to look at more than any other. This is my FODMAP load formula, right? And you can see it varies every day, right? Some days I had no FODMAPs, right? Some days I had very few FODMAPs, 1, right? Some days I had a ton of FODMAPs, right? 21, right? That's a lot of FODMAPs, right? 8, that's a medium amount of FODMAPs maybe, right? So each day is different, but it calculates this for me. So I know that this might be a little bit confusing, this spreadsheet. Don't let this confuse you. I know there's a lot of numbers going on here. Don't worry about the numbers. All of this, everything that you see here was calculated for me. I didn't put in any of these numbers. This is all, the spreadsheet is doing all the heavy lifting for me. This is just different nutrients. All you're seeing here is just different nutrients that I eat throughout the day, right? It's calculating all the vitamin B12 that I eat every day, or vitamin C that I ate through the day, or choline, or FODMAPs, right? Or fatty acids, right? Fatty acids maybe over here, or sugar, right? It's calculating all these numbers for me. The only thing that I put in is the grams of the foods that I eat. And all of this is calculated for me. It allows me to track things over time and compare them to my symptoms to see if there's any correlation between the two, right? That's what we're trying to do here. That's all we're trying to do. I'm going to explain these spreadsheets in the future, so don't worry about this right now. I just want you to focus on the FODMAP load, right? Okay, so now we're going to go back and we're going to talk about some practical takeaways, like as far as what this number actually means, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the FODMAP load brackets, okay? What would you consider to be a low, medium, and a high FODMAP load number, right? Well, rough ballpark is going to be that any FODMAP load that is 7 or less could be considered a low FODMAP intake. 7 to 14 could be considered medium FODMAP intake. Anything over 14, I would consider that to be a high FODMAP intake. Okay, so if you're 7 or less, you're not eating a lot of fruits or fibrous vegetables, right? Things that have a lot of FODMAP. I mean, you almost have to, like, to a certain extent, be trying to avoid FODMAPs to get less than 7. You kind of have to know, like, what's going on and what you're doing to get something less than 7. Okay, medium, I would say that's probably fairly typical for most people's diets, just without thinking about it, like probably how many FODMAPs they would eat during the day, like for normal population. And then high, anything more than 14, right, is you're eating a lot of FODMAPs through the day, right? You're having garlic, you're probably eating some pistachios or some blackberries. You know, you're definitely taking in a lot of FODMAPs, right, multiple times through the day. Okay, but probably the bigger question, right, is a certain tier better than another, right? Should you aim for a low FODMAP load number, or should you aim for a high FODMAP load number? Again, I think it depends, right? So I would say, so it's important to remember that if you do have some kind of gut dysbiosis, right, because of bacterial or fungal overgrowth in your small intestine that's causing you symptoms such as, you know, gas or cramping or diarrhea or distension or something like that, right? Or even secondary things like mood disorders or arthritis or, you know, brain fog, something like that. In the short term, maybe you do need to reduce your FODMAP intake as you address, this is the key, as you address the dysbiosis, right, the underlying dysbiosis. But remember, just like anything, it's never good to completely eliminate any one thing from your diet, right? You don't want to completely take out FODMAPs for the long term. You don't want to completely take out simple carbs for the long term. You don't want to take out completely protein from your diet long term, right? You don't want to take out fats from your diet long term. Short term, sure, maybe it is a good strategy as you directly address through, you know, probiotics or antimicrobials or antifungal azoles, right, or antibacterial agents, right, or, you know, whatever your preferred method is of addressing some of that underlying dysbiosis. Short term, maybe that's fine, but long term, I would say you probably don't want to be, you know, low. I think most people probably should fall in the medium category. Maybe you can get away with high, even if you're a healthy, normal individual that does not have SIBO or SIFO. High FODMAP intake is you're probably still not going to like your life a whole lot, you know, because you're going to have a lot of gas and you probably will have some cramping, just because everybody would if you get over a certain number. So it's going to depend on your personal goals. So hopefully that helped you guys. Hopefully you understood it. Of course, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm going to help you out with them. I'm going to answer your questions. Yeah, we'll get those questions answered for you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I have more videos like this. I've got a ton of different ideas. I want to help you guys out with that spreadsheet with calculating these things, so you can do this for yourself. And yeah, all right, have a great day.